We were in 2,800 square feet, and it was actually designed for about 12 officers. The department moved into it in the mid-90s. It was the back of City Hall. They had outgrown that space and had actually taken possession of a house that was out in the parking lot there, and we had patrol, detectives, admin, records divided between those two spaces, and really had just outgrown it and couldn't serve the community like we wanted to. This floor that we're working in now is about 8,000 square feet. And so we have room to grow even in this floor, and even more room to grow in the building. But really we can do best practice is our biggest thing, where we couldn't store records properly. We couldn't meet accreditation standards, and this building's gonna let us do that. So this area that you see here is dedicated to the patrol division, the guys that are working patrol, that are making the traffic stops, responding to calls, all of the emergency type work that you associate with a police department. This is where that's happening out of. In our previous space, they were mixed in directly with the records division or in that house that was out across the parking lot. We have a call screen here that shows all the calls for the valleys that the guy can see as they come in. We have a BAC processing area. Body cams are charging and uploading on that wall, as well as taser batteries. Those are also uploading information. And then down the one wall is all workstations, and obviously a meeting table that we have evening briefings between detectives, administration, patrol, records. It's open to anybody in the department, as well as other detective units that want to come and just talk about things that they have going on, people they may be looking for, incidents they may be watching out for, trends we're seeing, just information sharing that's happening in the afternoon. And that was something we did not have a space for previously. It would have been in the records department, and just really wasn't possible. And another thing that we didn't have in our old space was individual offices for the sergeants, but this allows them obviously to meet with their people, be able to work on the various projects that our sergeants get assigned, and just have their own space to work in. Assistant chief, our assistant chief obviously does exactly what it sounds like, assistant chief, but the big piece of his job is our patrol division. So he is out here with patrol, working with them and monitoring what's going on with them, the calls that are coming in, all of that type of activity. That is not a space that we had in the previous building. This is records division. So windows where people come in for all kinds of reasons, whether it's to report things, get reports, copies of accident reports, copies of the incident reports, and we do a lot of concealed weapons processing. So people have to be fingerprinted, backgrounded, all of that. It's an application process, and this is where our records clerks are. We have 3 full-time records clerks. They each have a workstation now where they can see the window. Previously, in our old setup, we only had room for one person to be in view of the window. Obviously wasn't ideal. And so all 3 can do this, and then we have some extra stations where officers who are on light duty, maybe volunteers that we have working in here, just different things that can go on. As you can see, we don't have a whole lot of file cabinets. We are moving towards being paperless, and the goal is to be there within a couple of years that everything would be stored in the cloud rather than taking up a whole bunch of square footage with file cabinets. Previously, our lobby was in City Hall, wasn't separate from courts, wasn't separate actually from the library or from the council chambers. It was just a long hallway was our lobby. So now we have the ability to have people come in, have a seat, wait to talk to whoever it is that they're looking for, or wait on to get called for their concealed weapons processing. But this room that's off to the side is something new for us, and it's what we would call a soft interview room, or just a meeting room where they don't have to talk in front of the rest of the public that is here. We didn't have that ability in our old space. The machine you see in there is the fingerprint machine that's used for processing the concealed weapons permit applicants. They fill out an application and get fingerprinted, and then we get back with them to get their permit to them. But the big thing was having the ability to have a private meeting with public without actually bringing them into the police department, and that's not something we had before. Previously, the old building officers did not have a break room that was separate from anything out in the house. There was a kitchen that you can imagine that was left over from from them, but our guys work 12-hour shifts, so especially nighttime, night shift officers, they do have time to prepare a meal and that type of stuff. So they're excited about the break room, excited about having their own space. All of our appliances, we definitely had run through our budget on the building, and we can talk about exactly what that was, but all the appliances were donated by Wenatchee Home Depot and installed by our city crews here. So the guys, this is a space they're excited to have as their own. So as you come out of records that way or come out of the break room area, then we're into the administrative wing, and we also house our SROs and detectives down here will go. But previously, the chief's office, and come on in, chief's office was small, was harder to do more than a one-on-one meeting in, and was really in the patrol area. There was no separation from patrol as far as all the conversations that were going on in patrol or going on in the administrative office equaled having to have the door closed a lot, so you could hear your phone call or hear your Zoom call these days. But so we have the ability to have our sergeant meetings in here, host meetings with other regional administrators, and it's all set up for Zoom and or Microsoft Teams, whatever you want to do, and do our thing here. So I'm excited to have a functional space that has a little bit of separation from where all the daily grind is going on. School resource officers did not have a desk at all, other than what the schools provide them in there. So each of our school resource officers have a desk, and then currently we're running 2 detectives. We're hoping to add a 3rd through a detective sergeant towards the end of the year, and we have a office available for that. But right now these guys are actually using double workstations, so this actually has enough room to accommodate 4 detectives in here as the city grows. We did not have like a full functioning, it was a closet where they processed evidence before. This has obviously 2-way lockers. Officers put the evidence that they collect in on one side, set it in here, push the button. They can't get back into it. It's accessed from the other side by the evidence clerk. It has a refrigerator that works the same way as those lockers for any blood or fluid related evidence that needs to be refrigerated until it's taken out and processed. Anything you would associate with DNA evidence or that type of thing would be stored in there. We were not set up for that. We had refrigerators with padlocks on them that were sitting out in the space that were kind of just haphazardly made. This is a blood evidence or fluid evidence drying locker. So you put it in there, secure it. The key for that then is it's hanging up there. It's locked, secured. The key's set into one of these and locked so the officers can't access it again. Fully self-contains with filters, dries it out, and then secures the odor from getting through the whole building. As you can imagine, some of that has pretty good odor associated with it. We put a lot of money into this evidence room. The walls go all the way to the ceiling. It's alarmed separately. It has another room within a room that is for money, drugs, and guns have to be secured separately from the rest of the evidence. It meets all accreditation standards, this room does. And just to give you an idea on price tag, just this wall unit itself was $47,000. These are about $11,000. You can start eating up your remodel budget really quick on this type of stuff.
Sounds necessary.
Yeah, our goal, like I mentioned in the beginning, is to meet accreditation standards and be an accredited agency again. The plan is to accomplish that by 2025, and with this facility, it meets those standards. And obviously, that would have been really hard to do in the old facility that we're in. We would have had to do a pretty significant remodel, and we would have been talking about putting a lot of money into a place that was too small for our agency. Previously, did not have our own training facility of any kind at East Wenatchee PD. This is all portable, obviously, can be moved out into that outer area. We have mats that are stored in there for defensive tactics type training. This room can accommodate 24 easily, could hold 30, which is everybody in our department. And this is something our guys are really excited about, having the ability to host training and get our internal training program rolling. This was one that, as we had our budget, were we going to have enough money to get this room up and running? And we did come in right at budget, and including getting this room furnished and wired up for training. The goal when I took over in June of 2020 was within 5 years to be an accredited agency. I think we're on track for that. I've been in contact with WASPIC. We've been talking about where we're at in LEMAP and where we're at working towards accreditation. 2025 is our goal currently, and a big piece of that was the facility. Like I mentioned several times on the tour, was in the facility that we were in, it was so limiting on some of the practices that we could do, whether it was record storage, evidence processing, evidence storage, that we weren't going to meet accreditation standards in that. And that's a big thing to myself and the mayor, is to be able to say, okay, we brought this police department back and we're going to be operating at best practice standards and have the ability to grow with the city's needs as we go here. In June of 2020, when I took over, the city was in the middle of a space needs assessment. They were identifying how many square feet did they need to meet the city standards for a 30-year building, 30, 40-year building. And the anticipated growth at that time for East Wenatchee was that within 30 to 40 years that East Wenatchee would be approaching 30,000 residents, and that equaled a 14,600 square foot police department. The cost on that in 2020 was right around $12 million to build that. And so that was what we were working towards, figuring out how that was going to be funded, where it was going to be. In 2021, we discovered this property here that, like I mentioned, was owned by a private citizen, but actually was being leased to several different state agencies, and we were aware this one was coming on the market. The total square footage on this building is 14,600 square feet, and so it is a 30, 40-year building. The building was purchased for $4.2 million, and then what we've done, including furnishings and everything, was a $1 million remodel and outfitting of this building. So we're at 5.2. As it sits. We do need to do some more things to this building eventually. We need to figure out how to get some evidence bays, garage bays onto the outside of this building that can be used for training as well as evidence storage. That would be the next phase that's on this, but there's no plans to do that at this time. That's something that needs to happen in the future as we continue to grow. But the ability for the police department, who's occupying the first floor now, to grow into the second floor is there for this building and will be available to the city.